Thank you, and I want to take a moment to really thank Dr. Boucher and Dr. Collins because they helped me find my voice. So thank you. I love being in this setting, not because I'm speaking or I'm lecturing, but because we're all coming together in a moment in time to connect. And that's really important for me. One of the key issues of understanding who we are is understanding our identity. And that changes. It changes continuously. And it's part of what we're talking about today, which is to stop, drop, and roll, is constantly stopping and understanding who we are. Now, this brings me to metanoia, and it's very simple to stop, dropping, and rolling. It's when the mind, the heart, and the soul connects, and we need to take a shift. Carl Jung, the psychologist, said that this happened when our emotions were in conflict, and our psyche would break. And in breaking, we created a rebirth. Now, I've had 148,000 metanoias in my life. I'm not going to share them all with you, don't worry. I kind of lost track when I was stroke counting. But the reality is that I want to stress that metanoia is continuous. It's not something that we have once in a lifetime. It happens continuously through our lifetime, much more than once a year. Let's just put it that way. Now, I'm going to start my story of metanoia when I was in second grade. I was 9 years old. And it was the third week of school, and my teacher, Mrs. McCrary, a beautiful black African-American woman with beautiful suits and beautiful pearls, and she wanted to get to know us. So she asked this question: what do you want to be when you grow up? And first of all, I wanted to impress her. And second of all, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm raising my hand, and I want her attention, and she is going to be impressed. So she finally called me, and she goes, Aimee, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I want to be president of the United States. And she looked at me, and she became serious, and I became scared, and I knew for sure she had seen my second grade report card. She was very gentle, and she was very kind, and she walked up to me, and she says, Aimee, there's 2 reasons you can't be president of the United States. 1, you're female. Remember, it was the 1970s. And 2, you weren't born in the United States. And if you're not born in the United States, you cannot become president. Now, I don't know if that jolted me. Maybe in the back of my mind it did. It definitely surprised me, but she was right on both counts. I was female, and I was born in Cuba. I am a Cuban exile. And on October 20th, 1962, my parents, Jose Antonio Sanchez and Luisa Aimee Mesa, came to the United States as Cuban exiles. They would return. They came for freedom and to give us a better life. And with them, they brought some baggage. They brought a 7-year-old, my sister Alina, a 2-year-old, my sister Alida, and a 6-month-old bundle of joy, me. Now, they wanted us to have a normal life, but my parents brought their own metanoia. They brought the fact that they would return to Cuba. My mother left her mother and her siblings. She was the youngest of 10. Her heart remained over there. My father, a successful businessman, left his entire business, came with his family, and he became a janitor at the local hospital. They did want us to have a normal childhood, and we did. I had a cat, a dog, a bossy older sister, a neurotic younger sister, and we enjoyed our life, and I continued being that bundle of joy. Now, we never moved into a Spanish neighborhood. Our first neighborhood was all Anglo, where Mrs. Baggett was my mother's friend, and I learned how to speak Spanish and English simultaneously. At the age of 5, we moved to an all-Jewish neighborhood where Mrs. Brown taught us about the Holocaust, and my mother shared recipes with her. When that neighborhood transitioned into an all-African-American neighborhood, my best friend Abby would take me home, and while her parents, Mrs. Williams and Dr. Williams, played jazz music, I learned about their sufferings. And then finally, the neighborhood transitioned into a Haitian neighborhood where I attempted to learn Creole. And our neighbor, Dorleen, would take 2 buses to go to work. And again, I learned about her sufferings. It was a challenge of understanding my identity. My parents had given us a gift of diversity. There were no boundaries, but they were Cuban exiles, and they would return. And that's where my challenge came. I could identify with all the people that I came across with, but I couldn't identify with a country that caused my parents so much pain. I was Cuban, but to the world, I was a Cuban immigrant. At the house, I was a Cuban in exile, and I was confused. I could identify with the world, but I didn't want to identify as a Cuban because my parents had pain, and that was something I lived with. One of the things I realized was that I became a chameleon. I could understand everyone's pain, not because I went through it, but because I saw it through my parents' eyes. And that's where my struggle was. So becoming a chameleon was something that was safe for me. Now, I need to stress the fact that chameleon didn't mean that I was being what other people wanted me to be. I was connecting, but it was a human connection. I understood the human connection of pain, and that was a great gift, that being a Cuban exile was given to me. And eventually, I made the connection. I made the connection that it was okay to be a Cuban exile because of their pain, and at the same time, but the most important thing, that I was Cuban, but I was human. And that's where life continues. That's where I had to stop, drop, and roll and understand that. Now, by now, you've probably guessed that I did not become president of the United States, but I did hold several presidential positions. 2 of companies that I own with my family, and 3 of the organizations that I hold near and dear to my heart. And we've come a long way since October 20th, 1962. Both my sisters are so bossy and neurotic, but they're successful. And my father's in the audience today, and I'm the one who's proud. And 31 years later, at the age of 40, I was able to ask one person the same question Mrs. McCrary asked me at the age of 9, which was, what do you want to be when you grow up? This time I asked, have you accomplished everything in life? And I asked that question to my mother a week before she passed away. We were in the hospital, and I was holding her hand tight, and I wanted to hold on to the moment, and I wanted to make sure that she was okay with what she did. I wanted to understand that she was okay with what she did, which made me okay with what I had become. And I asked her, and she responded, claro que sí. Of course, yes. And we had come together. She had fulfilled me. She had completed me in that moment in time. So I ask you all to do this, to take that moment and identify with who you are. Take that moment to understand who you are at your core. Take that moment to introduce yourselves to yourselves. Thank you.